Next up in the Heat Check series is Unicorn Danny Wolf, who's seen a pretty stellar season with Michigan after spending his first few years at Yale. The junior is a fluid 7-foot forward center hybrid who put himself on the map as a potential NBA guy at the 2023 FIBA U20 European Championship, where he won the silver medal with Israel, earning an all-tournament bid in the process. He saw a massive production spike in his second season with Yale, and he's now improved even more as a Wolverine, averaging 12.7 points, 10 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 1.6 blocks, and just under 1 steal on 51, 35, 63 splits. Here's how Heat Check works. I'm going to identify one draft prospect and grade them on what I believe to be the most generally important skills and aspects of their game: athleticism, scoring, defense, passing and playmaking, and overall feel for the game. After those 5, I'll grade one additional skill relative to that prospect that I think is going to have the biggest effect on their stock. That will be deemed the swing skill. Each skill will be graded on the Heat Check chart, with ranges from freezing all the way to scorching. When that's all said and done, I'll divvy out one final overall score. Starting with Danny Wolf's athleticism, I've gone with cool overall, despite some real fluidity and mobility at 7 foot. There's a ton to like about Wolf as a prospect, but his pure athleticism I don't think is one of those things. There's a real connectedness and coordination to his movement overall, but a severe lack of vertical or horizontal explosion. And while jumping and dunking of course isn't everything, I found in the totality of his film that there's more bad than good in the athleticism department. The foot speed isn't great, he's very upright, not unlike some talented NBA bigs like Jakob Poeltl, Mo Wagner, or even Nikola Jokic, but these things do tangibly show up statistically, leading to a high number of turnovers, probably slightly less efficient rim finishing with just 4 dunks through 27 games at Michigan, and most importantly, some defensive challenges. His pure height, physicality, and coordination does somewhat make up for these limitations. We've seen slow-footed and more lumbery bigs see some success in the NBA, but that can be an uphill battle. Moving on, I've graded Danny Wolf's scoring as warm, as this is likely his selling point, especially given his very unique, skill-driven playstyle. Let's start with the basics. Wolf is scoring 12.7 points per game for the Wolverines, shooting 51% overall, 35% from 3 on 3 attempts per game, and 63% from the line on over 3 attempts. He scored the bulk of his points on the interior, but is highly versatile in doing so. At 7 foot tall, he's a legitimate face-up threat, capable of operating on the perimeter basically all the time. He finishes 62% at the rim, a really great number and testament to his pure touch, given those certain limitations we talked about. The rest of his scoring value is tied to his shooting, where he's more than proven himself as a stretch big in my eyes. Per synergy, he ranks very good on jumpers, good on catch and shoot shots, and excellent on dribble jumpers, cashing in on 39% of those. I think the shooting form is perfectly solid, and while he doesn't have immense volume to back that up, I'd feel good enough to bet on this area, and plays like this alone are enough for me to add points to his overall resume. Here's where things get interesting. Nearly half of his points scored come in pick and roll plays. Some of that, of course, has been as the roll man, but a whopping quarter of all of his points so far have come as the pick and roll handler. That's obviously very atypical of a 7-footer and a pretty unique skill that plenty of NBA teams could probably take advantage of. Despite his lack of real shiftiness, his handle is pretty effective around screens, and he's got the necessary touch to finish getting downhill, even with contests. The rest of his points come in spotting up, in transition, where he shoots 52%, likely due to limited athleticism, and then you've got things like putbacks, cutting, rolling, ISO, etc. Positionally, I'm not even sure what that makes Wolf at the next level. I mean, he's legitimately played some point guard at 7 foot for Michigan this season. I guess in the very fluid modern NBA, it doesn't matter much. He plays like a jumbo wing opposed to a center. Just things to consider for teams looking to take the chance. All in all, I think Wolf offers a pretty unique scoring archetype at 7 foot tall, and one that the NBA could probably find a way to make work. I think there will obviously be a pretty big learning curve given how hard it can be for face-up bigs to work in general, but he's portrayed the touch, IQ, and more to gamble on him being a positive here. For Danny Wolf's defense, I've graded him cool here. This is probably the most important aspect of both his drafting and his future impact in the NBA. Can he defend at the professional level? I'll start with the good. Wolf's pure stocks and even some advanced stats would tell you he's a great collegiate defender, and honestly he may be. He nabs 1.5 blocks per game with 0.8 steals so far, and has a defensive box plus minus of 5.7, a really strong number. His pure size helps him to garner these blocks and some steals. He's got the bend and fluidity to ever so slightly be positionally versatile, and I think for all intents and purposes, he does at least care out there on this end of the floor. But I think a deeper dive and the eye test don't necessarily lean in his favor. The number one hit to Wolf on defense is again that athleticism. His lack of true verticality doesn't make him a truly legitimate or consistent rim protector or drop big, and the lack of horizontal quickness won't allow him to really defend in space, in my opinion. The skill jump to the NBA is going to be a massive one for a defensive tweener like this, where athletic and physical fives are forces on the interior, and NBA fours have a certain swiftness he likely hasn't consistently seen yet. Overall, I just think that makes for a very awkward defensive fit. But to Wolf's credit, he guards on the perimeter constantly at the collegiate level. He does not shy away from defending in space. Maybe in the long term he can hone his shot blocking skills or even hang with quicker pros better than I'm anticipating, but for now I think the offensive impact is going to have to be high for him to come out as a net positive, which is possible. I've graded Danny Wolf's passing and playmaking warm. Relative to most big men, he has elite feel, elite vision, and some genuinely awe-inspiring stuff. But he also has some pretty unignorable flaws. In terms of counting stats, Wolf averages 3.7 assists, a very good mark, to a whopping 3.3 turnovers, a very bad mark. He has an elite assist percentage of 23.5%. When you pair this with that pretty nifty face-up scoring game, you can kind of begin to see the vision of just how versatile and unique a player he is. As the stats suggest, the highs are high, but the lows are low for Wolf. He truly has every pass in his arsenal and the vision to match. He can grab it off the glass, dish in transition, we've already covered his prowess in the PNR, he can post up, live dribble with either hand, he has a great feel in the half court for double teams, where space is opening up and more. He's just a genuinely very talented passer and playmaker for his size. The catch is that his ambition gets him in trouble here, and he simply played too loose this year with Michigan owning a near 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio up until his recent stretch of slightly better play. He gambles far too often and just makes some really puzzling decisions for every good one. I can't in good faith give him a higher rating than Warm here given how many turnovers he has this year, and NBA teams won't be able to make him a rotational piece if that trend continues either. I've graded Danny Wolf's unquantifiable feel for the game as hot, as this is the driving force behind his success as a big-sized wing. You can have all the physical tools at your disposal, and oftentimes that can make up a ton of ground, but feel for the game is vitally important in being able to find success in the NBA, and I think it's clear in Wolf's soft touch around the rim, his craftiness as a ball handler, his affinity for flashy passing and more, that he has it. Now, there's obviously some serious refinement needed on his end, as we've touched on and will continue to touch on in the next section, but this little highlight reel alone is proof enough that he's got it, whatever it is. I think he has a great feel for what the right play is and when to make it. He just needs things to line up systemically and athletically to become the best version of himself. For Wolf's swing skill, I've gone with playability, or in simpler terms, are his negatives so much so that he'll be unable to find his way to the NBA court? Can his positives, size, scoring, passing, playmaking, stretchability, outweigh potential negative impact? And ultimately, I've landed cool here, as I think there's just a few too many questions for me to feel confident he could join an NBA rotation quickly in his career. Can he become a wash on defense and find a niche there? Will the team that drafts him use him on ball enough for those skills to shine? If not, is he a good enough shooter and off-ball scorer and connective passer for that to matter? Can he limit turnovers and wild plays, which could have more frequency in the NBA? One or two of these things I could chalk up to development or a perfect draft fit, but the combination leaves me a little skeptical despite just how good the positives are. The grade. I've given Danny Wolf a grade of 7.1. He is a crazy fun prospect, but again, there's just a few too many things holding me back from feeling confident in grading him better. If you zoom out and say, can Danny Wolf be a net positive basketball player in the NBA? There's just so many questions surrounding it. Will the athleticism and skill jump be too great? Will his shooting stay efficient? What's his role defensively? Will his offense carry to the same degree in the switch-heavy league? Now, as with every prospect in this series, I put Danny Wolf under the microscope, and I was pretty critical of him. I want to wrap this up with the fact that Wolf is an easy gamble as an early second-round pick, and well worth it in the late first round too. With the lower success rate of late firsts and seconds panning out in general, gambling on a guy like Wolf, even though he may have an uphill battle towards a positive outcome, is an easy bet. I am always and forever going to be fine with these huge home run swings this late. If the scoring translates seamlessly, he can take advantage of mismatches, cuts down on turnovers, and finds a defensive niche, You're looking at a scalable rotational guy and even a potential starter down the line. Does that make him a late lottery pick for me? No, but does that mean he's an easy bet later in the draft? Sure. That's it for this one. Let me know what you think of Danny Wolf, what you grade him, where you draft him, drop who you want to see in the next heat check, and we'll see you next time.